So here, unlike the other spinal sectors, it is divided into sectors 1 to 8, again starting at the body anteriorly, and the ella, wherever it is present, is divided into anterior and posterior ella. We'll note that as we go from cranial to caudal, the shape of the sacrum changes at all levels, and not at all levels will we find all the 8 sectors. Like this image at S3 to S5 levels is showing only 4 sectors. So sector 2 is missing, then 5 is missing, and so on. So these are the guidelines that they have given depending on the extent in that sector, and also whether the lesion is bulging into a neural foramen. These CTV guidelines have been described, and you can go through these in detail in the original publication. So coming to PTV delineation, PTV is usually given as a 1.5 to 2.5 millimeter margin around the CTV, and it should contain obviously the entire GTV and CTV. But sometimes this PTV will impinge on our organs at risk or PRVs, and this may have to be modified adjacent to those critical structures. So it should never overlap with the spinal cord or the cord avoidance structure that we form. For maintaining the uniformity of prescription, another volume can be added that can be labeled as PTV prescribed. So the PTV that is generated from the regular expansion can be subtracted out of the cord PRV, and you give the final prescription or do a dose evaluation on this final PTV prescribed. The most important OAR in spine is the spinal cord or cauda equina, depending on the level. But other structures such as esophagus in the cervical and dorsal spine, ribs or chest wall in the same region, the skin always, aorta, and depending on the craniocaudal extent, heart, lungs, kidneys, and bowel may also be additional OARs that will need to be delineated. Ideally, they should be delineated for the entire extent, but at least a vertebral level above and below. For spinal cord delineation, as I mentioned before, the T2 MR helps best because the CSF appears bright there. But we have to be cautious that even changing the CT window or the MRI window may alter the visualized true cord. You cannot under contour because then you will be giving a higher dose. You cannot over contour because then you will be underdosing epidural space, which may harbor tumor. Usually a PRV margin of 1.5 millimeter is given around the cord. The thicker sac, which is sometimes taken as the surrogate for cord, is almost equivalent to this 1.5 millimeter margin. So there is less data regarding what the optimal target coverage should be and what prescription isodose should be used. Usually it is preferred that 95% of PTV should receive the full dose. But occasionally when there is a lesser gap between the critical structure and the PTV, we may have to accept lower coverage as well, even as low as 85%. We should try to limit the hotspots within the PTV to less than 130% of prescription dose, which means that the prescription isodose should lie somewhere between 70 and 80% in most situations. The spinal cord Dmax usually lies between 50 to 70% of prescription dose. And if the tumor coverage or OAR constraints are unacceptable, instead of a single fraction, we should consider more fraction. This is a cartoon which is showing the prescription isodose here. This is the safety limit for the cord, and this is our actual target. The target is in gray. So we are able to meet the coverage by exceeding the cord constraints, or we are able to meet the cord constraints while under covering our target. So this dotted blue line is the region of under coverage, and the planner's intent should be to reduce the volume of this region as much as possible. So the dose fractionation varies. Usually 1 to 5 fractions is what is recommended, and in the most recent data, it is said that if you're able to deliver in 1 to 3 fractions, that has a better chance of control. And when whatever dose regimes you may be using, try to keep the BED more than 50 gray. For re-irradiation, a more fractionated regime of up to 5 fractions is used so that you are able to meet the cord constraints. For dose fractionation, the earlier studies started with 24 gray in single fraction. They had good control rates, but they also had higher rates of vertebral body compression fractures. And it was determined that if you give doses more than 20 gray, the chances of vertebral fractions are higher. This 20 gray is in a single fraction. And the lower the number of fractions, the higher is the local control, and the higher the dose per fraction, the better is the local control. Pain CR is better when you are giving a higher BD and a higher total dose, but pain control durability is higher when you are fractionating more. So single fraction uh, with an equivalent BD will have an earlier complete response, but it may not be as durable as a more fractionated course of maybe 3 or 5 fractions. And there is a better local control when once we have downgraded the epidural disease by a separation surgery. These are the AAPM TG101 recommendations for all the OARs. You can see that the single fraction dose maximum for the cord given by AAPM was 14 gray, but for volume we have to respect lower doses, 0.35 cc, a threshold of 10 gray, and 1.2 cc, a threshold of only 7 gray. And this changes with the increase in number of fractions. For spine SBRT, unlike in other sites where we are able to do a 3D CRT as well, such as in liver tumors or in maybe lymph nodal pathologies. But here, because our target and OAR is so closely associated, the minimum is IMRT. And it can be used with various techniques such as CyberKnife, tomotherapy, rapid arc. And there is a need for a very rapid dose fall off. You have to give 24 gray to your target, and you have to spare the cord to less than 17 gray in a 2 fraction regime with a separation of only 2 to 3 millimeters. So every millimeter, we should have a dose drop of 10 to 15%. A typical plan image where this is the spinal cord, the CTV and the PTV, which is closely associated with the esophagus as well as the spinal cord. So our 24 gray isodose is confined to the vertebral body essentially. And as you go to lower isodoses, the 17 gray isodoses is just touching the cord, and 12 gray isodose is nearly covering a large segment of the cord here. So this is how a typical plan would look like. A few case scenarios of the patients that we have treated here. This was a patient with a carcinoma prostate with an oligometastatic D8 circumferential lesion involving all 6 sectors, who underwent a posterior laminectomy, then underwent docetaxel-based chemotherapy, and was on ADT when he was referred to us. So he had involvement of all these sectors on the PET scan, and the MRI had also shown epidural disease, which was impinging on the cord, a Bilski grade of 3 initially early at baseline, but post initial laminectomy and ADT, the Bilski grade was only 1A. So this is the GTV, which is including all the Gros disease. This is the CTV, which is including all the 5 sectors. The sector 4 has actually been removed in laminectomy, so that is not part of our CTV. PTV with a 2 millimeter margin. We gave a prescription of 8 gray into 3 fractions. The various OARs, which are drawn here, including a segment of the skin here. This was the dose profile. We were able to meet the dose constraints for the spinal cord as well as for our PTV here. This is the 50% isodose, and this is tending into almost nearly touching the skin here. A second case, another prostate cancer patient who had extensive disease upfront, but after ADT and other systemic therapy, he had a new L3 body lesion which was confined to sector 1 and lateralized, no epidural disease. So this was the GTV in red, the CTV in orange, and a 2 millimeter PTV margin in pink. The CTV was extended to include sectors 1, 2, and 3 because the lesion was also on the CT scan seen to involve the sector 2. So this patient again given the same dose, and this was the dose profile. Third case is a patient with RCC, post-systemic therapy, had a residual L2 lesion, which was involving the the lesion was involving the anterior vertebral body, not tending towards any of the pedicles. So our CTV included only of sector 1 and PTV given as a 2 millimeter margin. This was prescribed a dose of 16 gray. So all planning is good, but it is also essential for any SBI program to have a good QA verification and delivery mechanism. After QA and verification are done, we have to ensure that patient is comfortable during treatment. So adequate pain medications have to be given. If needed, anxiolytics also should be given. And it is recommended that they also receive dexamethasone of about 4 milligram prior to each session. Image guidance is mandatory. We have to verify the correct position before, during, and after the treatment sessions. For facilities which have the CyberKnife or ExactTrack or RTRT system, intrafraction continuous tracking also helps to monitor the motion during the course of treatment. For re-irradiation, the dose constraints will change. We have to allow for the previous dose received. If possible, look at the entire previous plan. And usually a more fractionated course is used. Single fractions are less commonly possible. And we have to ensure that the prior time of radiation was at least 5 months ago. And the previous radiation therapy doses received to the thecal sac or the cord are known. And we have to restrict ourselves to a BED of 70 gray total and a BED of 25 gray or lesser for the retreatment. This is one study where they had used, for a lower Bilski score, they had used a fractionation regime of 8:3, whereas for a higher Bilski score, a more fractionated regime was used. So this data is by Arjun Sehgal's group, and they have determined the risk of radiation myelopathy depending on the dose to the critical normal tissues over the number of fractions delivered. For a single fraction, for a 5% risk of myelopathy, the allowed dose is 12.4 gray. For 1% risk, the dose allowed is 9.2 gray. For spinal cord, it is assumed that 5% risk may be too high a risk. So if possible, you should aim at a myelopathy risk of 1% only. And as you fractionate, these values also change. I've already told before, a cumulative Dmax of critical normal tissues to be kept below 70, SBRT Dmax to be kept below 25, and the percentage of this to the prior Dmax should be less than 50%, minimum time interval of 5 months. For re-irradiation, we have to take into account the previous cumulative Dmax and normalize it. So that will also vary depending on the number of fractions used. If you're not able to meet for a single fraction, then it is advised that you fraction. So when we see the data of SBRT and try to compare it with conventional radiotherapy, we find that obviously we know that the volumes are different, but
I think can we conclude now?
Yes, sir. Okay, I'll just show.
Because it overshot the time. Yeah.
I'll try to complete in the next couple of minutes. The response assessment criteria that is recommended now is the SPINO criteria. We have to take into account both the pain response as well as the imaging response. And here in the imaging response, it is only local control versus local progression. So complete response, partial response are not the criteria. And these are the things that we should look at in the subsequent follow-up imaging. Occasionally, pseudo-progression can also be a factor. So serial interval imaging can give us that answer. So the available evidences show that we are able to achieve a very good local control with a good pain relief and overall survival with the proposed treatment. And this has been borne in the various retrospective and prospective single arm studies. There are a few data which are available from India. Dr. Anand's data is one of those where they had treated patients who had epidural components also, who received SBRT and achieved a very good pain CR. A couple of phase 2 and 3 studies whose data was available last year and this year. The RTOG study was unable to find out a benefit in favor of SBRT compared to single fraction of 8 gray last year. But this year, there is data from Arjun Sehgal's group again. They've compared 20 grain 5 with 24 grain 2, and they were able to achieve better pain CRs in their study. This is an ongoing study, again comparing 20 in 5 with a fractionated SBRT course. These are the ongoing trials. The most common site of failure is the epidural space. So that is something that we have to account for during our planning process. Toxicities, radiation myelopathy I've dealt with earlier. Vertebral body compression fracture is one toxicity that we have to be mindful of. The incidence is early within the first 4 months usually, and you have to keep the high Dmax in single fraction to less than 20. When we are fractionating, the chances will drop. So to summarize, SBRT is able to give us a superior pain control and local control compared to conventional radiation. It should be offered judiciously in well-selected cases, patients who have a good performance status and life expectancy and limited spinal disease. The treatment technique should be standardized for any institution, and the various steps that I elucidated earlier have to be followed. In future, we will probably see more data which is favoring this process when the data from these phase 3 trials, long-term data from these phase 3 trials emerges. Based on these, we will be able to define the selection criteria as well as our dose volume parameters. Use of SBRT as immunomodulator has already been elucidated in the previous talk, and the role of combination therapies with SBRT will also emerge. Thank you.
So, okay, thank you very much, Dr. Shikha, for a very detailed presentation, and I would say very nice presentation, a lot of clinical data. So, if we can go for questions from the audience, do we have any questions, please? If somebody can flash the question, we can ask Dr. Shikha.
Sir, questions are written in the group chat. We have to.
Can you read the first question?
Okay, sir. Just give me a minute. One question from the audience: can underdosing of the spinal tumor interface acceptable if the patient cannot undergo separation surgery?
Okay, Dr. Shikha, yes.
Actually, this plan has to be determined in a MDT situation. Of course, it would be better than offering an 8 gray single fraction or 20 in 5 to a larger volume. As your own data suggests, sir, even for these situations, if we offer a lower dose, the gross tumor in the epidural space, and a higher dose to the bony lesion far from it, we will be able to achieve cures or good control rates exceeding 90%, even in this situation.
In this, I can just add that in patients with the epidural component, we will have to compromise on the dose to the epidural component. If no separation surgery is possible, then we have to see what is the core dose and what is the dose to the thecal sac and sorry, to the epidural component. And what we found in our study was usually we could not achieve 24 gray, which was our intended dose to the target. To the epidural component, we could not achieve more than 19 gray in 3 fractions. So 19 gray in 3 fraction is a reasonably good dose while sparing the cord and treating the epidural component with SBRTs. So the answer is that if separation surgery is not possible, yes, we can deliver SBRT, but we have to be very, very careful the dose to the cord and thecal sac. And so you have to do some kind of risk versus benefit ratio on the cord as well as on the epidural component. Any second question? Any other question?
So second question is there any recommended gap between the immunochemotherapy and SBRT?
Yes, Dr. Shikha?
Earlier, we used to stop all systemic therapy before offering SBRT. But from whatever little experience I have, especially with RCCs who are on pazopanib or sunitinib, even patients who have continued these therapies have not had any added toxicities. Of course, chemotherapy should not be continued. Any radionuclide therapy should not be continued during that process. But targeted therapies, VEGF targeted or EGFR targeted therapies, in the small clinical experience that is there, they have been found to be safe and not really added to toxicity. Same is the role for immunotherapy as well.
Yeah, I agree with her. We had a small presentation recently on immunotherapy because some of the immunotherapies can have lung problems. And if it is a thoracic spine, exit dose can go to the lungs. So, but we checked a lot of literature. SBRT has the distinct advantage that the exit dose towards the lung is also very, very low. So, and one of the advantages mentioned is that while patient is continuing on chemotherapy, one can give SBRT. So several times patient is on 3 weekly regimen, we continue SBRT in between, we don't stop the chemotherapy. So that is also a good advantage. So any other question?
Yeah, and so one question is, why spine become a special site when we go with the CTV for SBRT? Because for other sites, we are not taking CTV, we are just taking a GTV and PTV. So are we overdosing or are we taking care of the microscopic disease for the stereotaxy? So this is the question from one of the audience.
Dr. Shikha, you want to respond?
Yes. Sir, if there is only a soft tissue component, we are able to delineate that with greater confidence. But within the bony substance, it may be difficult to identify the tumor and not account for any microscopic disease. In the initial studies where people included only the GTV, there were adjacent failures in the adjacent components of these bones. That is why this concept of CTV came up and this guideline was developed.
Actually, there is some confusion about the CTV and PTV in spinal SBRT. So if the radiologically detected lesion maybe on the vertebral body is the GTV, and the rest of the vertebral body is the CTV. And most of the people will not give any additional PTV because the CTV which we have taken the entire vertebral body even without any radiological involvement. So in our study, even today, we don't put any additional PTV except for any paraspinal extension of the tumor. So if you see most of the studies, they will say CTV equivalent to PTV. So that is our protocol in our department. So the question is that I don't think we are digressing from the recommendation. There is always a CTV around the GTV, and in spine it is much less compared to other sites in conventional radiation. Any other question?
So there are 2 or 3 questions with a similar question asking the gap between the SBRT and chemotherapy or immunotherapy, and Dr. Sheikh has already answered those questions.
Another related question could be, what should be the gap between surgery and post-op SBRT? When we should deliver post post-op SBRT. Dr. Shika, somebody would like to respond? What should be the gap?
Ideally, sir, somewhere between 3 to 4 weeks, because you should allow for the complete healing, as well as not a lot of time should pass for the tumor to grow, for the residual tumor.
So I think there is a very good publication on this. If you want, I can send you. For space creating surgery and the surgery with not too much of hardware, people are delivering post-op SBRT even on day 3 to 5. Because right now with SBRT, we are hardly delivering any dose to the skin because our target volumes are above the skin, above the subcutaneous tissue. So in our department, if a lot of hardware is not used, if it is only a vertebroplasty or a space creating surgery, or it is just a laminectomy, we deliver 3 to 5 days later, because later on edema and other things also creep in. So I think there is a good literature which says that we can deliver an early post-op SBRT.
So there's another question, from Dr. Kanu Charan Patro, who wants to know single spine metastasis with cord compression. If you want to give SBRT including a part of the cord, what is the best dose fractionation, Dr. Shikhar?
Okay, Shikhar.
But I don't understand why the cord should be part of the target. Yes, the cord and PTV can be side by side, and then we will have to accept or follow the cord constraints. Usually for these situations, a fraction size of 5 would be more appropriate. If that is also not met, then we have to go to the conventional.
Yeah. I think 3 to 5 fractions. Single fraction should be avoided, is my impression. Single fraction should be avoided if there is a problem in the tumor cord interface. If you can't maintain a distance of 1 to 2 millimeters, then it's better to fractionate. And as it is worldwide, single fraction SBRT is becoming now less and less popular. More people are giving 3 fractions. We also do most of the time 3 fractions.
So would you recommend kyphoplasty after SBRT as a routine to prevent vertebral fractures in case you think that the body is unstable or is going to have a fracture soon?
So if question is to me or to Shikha? So I think we have to go by the SIN score, and some of the literature says that if more than 50% of the vertebral height is lost, then, and the patient is obese, then it is worthwhile to do vertebroplasty and then do SBRT. But if patient is not very obese and the vertebral height is 50% or near about that, we can wait and watch. And anytime if the pain persists, or if we see radiologically the vertebral height is getting affected, then we can do vertebroplasty later on also.
There's one question where I cannot understand what the student wants to know, but I think what he needs to know is that how does the SBRT work in radio-resistant tumors?
Yes, so some students wants to know.
So somebody on the audience has asked this question. So
okay, Dr. Shikha wants to respond.
I think this was covered in our first class on radiobiology itself. So apart from the standard 4 hours or 5 hours of radiobiology that we study for conventional radiation, in this radiosurgery situation where we are giving more than 8 gray per fraction, there is an additional component of vascular damage also, and that leads to more direct cell kill rather than the DNA damage which comes from the other conventional criteria.
Yeah.
So that direct cell kill is responsible for more damage to the tumor, even if it is conventionally considered radioresistant.
Yes. So I think the mechanism is different for SBRT. It's not G2M phase killing as we are used to it. As she said, vascular and there's another word they use, interstitium, which is around the tumor, is also affected by SBRT. So interstitium and vascular damage are the mechanism of action for the SBRT, and that's why it works better in radio-resistant tumor. Dr. Shikha, I want to ask you one question. Which will be the best patient to select for SBRT? Because oftentimes, especially in private sector, people say you do more SBRT because you want to earn more money. So who is the best patient? If left to you, you will do SBRT for every spine metastasis. We have seen your recommendation. But if I say you choose one patient where SBRT, you can argue with medical, surgical, and neurosurgeon that this is the patient we would take up for SBRT.
A patient, sir, who has limited spinal disease, 2 to 3 vertebrae, preferably non-contiguous, who has a disease, a systemic disease extent, for which systemic treatment is available, and who has a good life expectancy, which is exceeding 4 to 5 months. This patient would benefit from the additional pain control benefit of SBRT, as well as the local control that this treatment offers. Because the conventional radiation pain relief would be there with single fraction. We have seen that 16 gray and 8 gray single fraction were actually matched in the RTOG trial. But the durability of pain control is better when we are offering SBRT-like doses. So a patient who has a good performance.
Yeah. I think there's a very big difference in the response rate. The best response rate with conventional radiation is around 40 to 60%. And median duration of response is less than 6 months. With SBRT, response rate is 80 to 90%, and relapse rate is less than 10 to 12%. So I feel there's no comparison. And if a patient who is expected to live 2 years or more, and she is a very fit patient, and as you say, a very effective systemic therapy or targeted therapy or a hormonal therapy is available, that is the best patient we must argue for SBRT. That is my thought. Any other questions?
So, Dr. Shikha, I have one question. What is your opinion if there is more than 2 contiguous vertebra involvement for regarding SBRT? These patients can be considered or they should be fractionated?
See, if they are in the lumbar spine, if you are not concerned too much about achieving the cord constraints, you may be able to select that. The main issue is being able to achieve the cord dose. Because if you fractionate more, you may lose some control. And for achieving the cord constraints for a 14 to 15 centimeter segment of cord, or if you are taking 3 vertebra, 9 centimeter segment of cord, you will not be able to deliver the same dose. So it's mainly that you may derive a plan, see what you are able to achieve in the cord. If you are able to meet that, then well and good. I think then there is no detriment to offering SBRT there, but it is usually not possible.
Because I recently attended one talk by Dr. Arjun Sehgal. He has already done more than 2 or 3 vertebra contiguous involvement. The main issue, he told us that if there are more vertebra involvement, then the major limitation is the movement of spinal cord. So if you are treating a large segment of cord, there might be more motion. So you have to take an additional 1 to 1.5 millimeter margin to spare the cord in such scenario.
Yeah. So any other question from the house? Any other?
One last question, Dr. Shikha. What is your comment on RTOG 061 results? This is one of the question by Dr. Anand.
0631, the one that compared 16 to 8. Yeah. So the 2 trials that I showed, one trial had a negative result, the other one had a positive result. So this negative trial, the criteria was reduction in pain score by a few points, by 3 points in the trial. And they said that even for the first evaluation at 3 months, nearly half the patients had dropped out. So the evaluation was not for all the patients who were treated. There was some imbalance between the radio-resistant and radio-sensitive histologies, also between the 2 groups. And also with respect to the dose delivered, there was some controversy, as in there were some patients in the 8 gray single fraction arm who were in the interim period also offered some more radiation. So there, the 8 gray arm did not actually receive 8 gray only, they received slightly higher dose. So there was a lot of criticisms to all these factors at that time. The full paper has not come in as yet, so we don't have all that data which will help us answer some of these questions.
So one of the critics that Dr. Arjun has told us in the presentation that in RTOG they have actually assessed the generalized overall pain score, but in the current Dr. Arjun Sehgal paper they have assessed the pain of the
Complete
vertebra.
response. Complete
On
response.
that vertebra, because once you take the entire score, then the result become negative because the patient might be having vertebral metastasis in which they have given conventional fractionation to one and other to SBRT.
Right.
So this might be one of the reasons.
So I think the indication for two contiguous vertebra is a long-standing one, because if you see the RTOG initial contouring guidelines, they said two adjacent vertebra. So we have been treating for ages too. We don't make any distinction. More than two, we don't have data, and then you become more skeptical. But up to two vertebra, it is fairly standard.
Yeah, up to 2
What about dose versus response relationship, maybe in relation to histology? What would be the dose you will give today? Dr. Shikha, what is your impression about the dose?
Sir, the current data that was presented in ASTRO 2020, they have achieved in a phase 3 trial compared with conventional, they have achieved a good pain CR with 24 gray in 2 fractions, 12 gray per fraction. So if that is possible to deliver in a particular situation, that should be our goal as well.
And I think there is another paper from MSKCC about renal cell carcinoma, which I feel I have also burnt my finger with renal cell carcinoma, which seem to be the most radio resistant. And the dose which went up to 27 gray in 3 fraction was better than 24 gray in 3 fraction. And now they are recommending even to the GTV, you mark the GTV with the MRI, to that area you may even give 30 gray in 3 fraction. So the dose has moved from 24 to 27 and to a very limited GTV, even to 30 gray in renal cell carcinoma, because that is one tumor which has a long, usually they survive long, and they are the most radio resistant tumors.
Right, sir.
So I think the questions, Dr. Kataria, anything you want to say, and you want to close the session?
I would like to invite Dr. Sushovan Banerjee, our senior consultant, to propose a vote of thanks.
Okay.
So thank you everyone. It was a very nice presentation. Thank you to all the presentations. Special thanks to moderator Anand sir for your insightful comments, sir, and thanks to our ex-colleague Dr. Shikha well. It has been a really nice presentation, Dr. Shikha. Thanks to our madam, Dr. Kataria, for pursuing us to this presentation and making these sessions happen actually. And my colleagues, Dr. Deepak and Dr. Shyamvist, who has been really working very, very hard behind all the scenes and in making this project successful. And thanks to Mr. Dinesh and our IT team from Medanta Hospital, all the participants for to be with us in this evening. Thanks a lot to everyone.
Thank you. And will you invite us for a dinner?
Sure, sir. Really happy. I will be very happy.
You are invited to you are invited to your dining hall, your own dining hall for dinner now. Everybody is invited to their own dining hall.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Shikha. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.